I have constitutional qualms generally about a lot of aspects of the bill.
I think it's going too far to allow legislation to pass through this House which makes it a criminal offence to carry an insulting placard.
The Public Order Act was brought in 1994 to deal with ostensibly the problem of street violence and street drunkenness.
It's a set of laws that give power to the police to control the public in certain public situations and in certain public areas, to control the behaviour of people.
Behaviour which is, in the words of the Act, seriously offensive.
Well, the most common offences with which people are charged under the Public Order Act are Sections 4, which is drunk and disorderly. Section 6, which is a breach of the peace. And Section 8, which is loitering or not obeying a direction of a Garda. If a Garda tells you to leave an area and you don't, you've committed an offence. People often think drunk and disorderly is something that you're going around being a threat to somebody else. However, drunk and disorderly, it's acting in a way that's a threat either to somebody else or to yourself. So even if you're falling around the street and the person you are most likely to harm is yourself, you could still be guilty of an offence.
Street violence and drunkenness has gone up consistently, and we've seen this year a very dramatic increase since the Act came in 1994. So the Act has been wholly unsuccessful in dealing with the problem that it was designed to address, yet it has been very successful in clamping down on peaceful protest.
If this legislation is being used, directed against particular protesters who are peacefully protesting and are just simply exercising their right of protest, irrespective of where they come in the political spectrum, if this legislation is used against them, that is an abuse of the legislation without any question.
There was a critical mass cycling protest in Dublin last year, which was just by a group of people objecting to the number of cars in the city centre. They cycled through the streets, slowing down traffic in some streets for maybe up to half an hour. And a lot of those people were arrested, and some have been convicted. So you're not talking about your dangerous classic anti-globalisation activists. You're talking about cyclists in some cases.
You don't moving off the road on a arrest you for obstruction, do you?
Farmer groups and taxi drivers were not prosecuted when they blocked streets, but environmental activists and political activists have been. Any journalists that were arrested under the Act seem to have been arrested purely for not following the directions of a Garda. And not following the directions of a Garda gives a huge power to a Garda. And we're talking about journalists that were arrested because they did not hand over cameras, which they have no obligation to do. And there is nothing in the Act about journalists or any other members of the public handing over recording devices of any kind. But when you don't comply with the direction of a Garda, that is an offence within itself. So this is the type of example of a broad power being abused.
Marty.
Marty?
Yeah.
So is the season on you?
Why?
That's just totally unacceptable. And I mean, any guard who's doing that ought to be ashamed of themselves. And if done intentionally, in my view, ought to be expelled from the force.
I think it has huge implications for free expression, for free speech. Obviously, what one person finds offensive may not be what somebody else finds offensive. And certainly, I think Section 7 is particularly open to a constitutional challenge. There's an offence under Section 9 of obstructing anybody's free passage. Again, that would have huge implications, I think, for somebody who's engaging in some form of sit-down protest. They are certainly guilty of an offence under Section 9.
Stop being annoying. Stop it. Stop being annoying.
Individual Gardaí are looking at the Act almost in narrow focus and saying that literally somebody is doing something which is annoying somebody else, and therefore I'm entitled to take steps to arrest them. That was never what the Act had in mind.
it's an extremely broad act in its potential application, and in its actual application too. An awful lot of people are charged with offences under it.
There's been worrying developments in Ireland in the last year, but this mirrors developments across the European Union. A lot of legislation has come in September the 11th, which allows huge powers to police all across the Union, particularly around political protests.
It's not so much the act itself, but it's the way in which it has been, in some instances, apparently misused by the Gardaí.
Wide powers will be used widely.